This man lost his health, lost his business, lost everything, and then found out a pregnancy happened and ended without anyone ever telling him. And today, from inside a federal prison, the man he is suing for $20 million just demanded a jury trial. But here is what nobody is asking. What exactly is Clayton Howard about to say about Cassie Ventura in that courtroom? Because what he is claiming about her changes this entire story completely.
Now, the verdict in 50 months of incarceration for Diddy. Now, when you subtract the 14 months of time served, that comes to 3 years exactly. Now, some of the emotional highlights from the day: Diddy begging the court for leniency, his 6 adult children speaking out, asking that their father be given a second chance, and then Diddy in tears while a documentary-style video was played by his defense team.
Think about what it takes to do what Clayton Howard is doing right now. Your life fell apart publicly, your business collapsed, your health was affected, and you found out about a pregnancy the way you found out about everything else in this story from someone else, long after it happened. And instead of walking away quietly, instead of taking whatever settlement someone offered to make you disappear, you enrolled in law school from scratch, so you could fight this case yourself. And today, the man you are taking on, the man currently serving a 50-month sentence at Fort Dix federal prison, filed a demand for a jury trial in your $20 million lawsuit from inside his prison cell. Now let that land for a second, because this is a man who is already doing time on a federal conviction, already appealing that conviction at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, already watching multiple civil cases move through the courts simultaneously. And instead of quietly letting Howard's lawsuit sit, instead of keeping his legal exposure as low as possible, Diddy looked at this case from inside Fort Dix and said he wants 12 regular people to hear it. His company Siopco LLC, his label Bad Boy Entertainment LLC, all of them demanding a jury trial, 3 simultaneous legal battles, 0 wins on any of them. And the man he is demanding that jury trial against is sitting in a law school classroom right now, preparing to face him. But before we get into what Clayton Howard is actually alleging in that courtroom, you need to understand exactly who he is and how he ended up inside this world in the first place, because that story alone changes how you see everything that came after it. Clayton Howard's story starts around 2009. That is when Cassie Ventura allegedly reached out to him through an agency. He was brought in to participate in the sessions that would later become central to Diddy's entire federal case. And what started as a single arrangement turned into nearly 10 years inside that world. 10 years. Think about what a decade of that does to a person's sense of reality, of normalcy, of what is acceptable and what is not. Howard was not a peripheral figure who showed up once and left. According to the lawsuit, he was a recurring presence, someone Cassie allegedly kept coming back to, someone who reportedly became familiar with how the whole arrangement operated from the inside. And during all of that time, sources say Howard had no idea who he was actually dealing with, because the man running everything, the man whose name was on the buildings and the label and the brand, never used his real name around Howard, not once. In nearly 10 years, Howard allegedly knew him only as Frank Black, a name that meant nothing, a name connected to no public figure, a name that kept the most powerful man in the room completely invisible to the person being paid to be there. And here is where it gets darker, because while Howard was operating inside this world, under the belief that Frank Black was just some wealthy private individual, a federal investigation was building around the real identity behind that name. And when that investigation finally became public, and the name Sean Combs was attached to everything Howard had spent a decade inside, his entire life outside of those sessions started to collapse. And trust me, what happened to him after that is worse than anything that happened before it. And here is where the federal case and Howard's civil lawsuit collide in a way that nobody saw coming. Because Howard did not just file a lawsuit with his own account of events, he filed a lawsuit that got confirmed, detail by detail, by FBI testimony at Diddy's actual criminal trial. A special agent took the stand during those proceedings and laid out something that stopped the courtroom cold. Diddy had been using his personal American Express card to pay for flights, hotels, damages, all under the name Frank Black, not a company card, not a shell account routed through a business entity. His personal American Express, which means every transaction was traceable directly back to him from the beginning, and the damage bills were not small. According to FBI testimony, nearly $47,000 in damage was logged at a single New York hotel alone. $47,000 in one location, under a fake name, paid with a personal card connected to his real identity. And that testimony did something specific for Howard's civil case. It confirmed that Frank Black was not just a nickname Diddy used casually. It was a deliberate alias constructed specifically to create distance between his public identity and what was happening in those hotel rooms. Which means for nearly 10 years, Howard was operating inside an arrangement run by one of the most famous men in the world, without ever knowing it. And when the investigation became public, and Howard's name started appearing in press coverage connected to the case, the consequences for his life outside of those sessions were immediate, devastating, and in some ways, irreversible. But here is the part that nobody in the mainstream coverage has properly addressed, because what happened to Clayton Howard after his name became public is the detail that makes this lawsuit about something much bigger than money. I need you to actually sit with this one for a second, not just hear it. Sit with it, because Clayton Howard did not just lose money. He did not just lose a contract or a client or a business deal. He lost things you cannot put a number on. According to the lawsuit, Cassie allegedly passed a serious health condition to him during their time inside that arrangement, a condition he was never warned about, never given the chance to protect himself from. He found out after, the way he found out about everything in this story, after. And then came the detail that stopped me cold when I first read it. Cassie became pregnant by Howard, and the pregnancy was ended without anyone ever telling him it had happened. Not a phone call, not a message, not a conversation, nothing. He found out there had been a child, and that the child was gone from media coverage of someone else's legal case. Imagine that for a second. Imagine finding out that way. And while Howard was sitting with all of that, the press coverage connecting his name to the federal case was dismantling the life he had built outside of those sessions. His construction business collapsed. Clients disappeared overnight. Contracts vanished. Years of work, gone. Not because of anything he did wrong. Not because of any crime he committed, because his name appeared in someone else's story. And sources say Howard is now broke, completely. The man who spent nearly a decade inside one of the most financially excessive worlds in music history cannot afford a lawyer. And that detail, that specific devastating detail, is what makes what he did next the most remarkable part of this entire story. And here is where this story takes a turn that nobody expected. Because Clayton Howard did not respond to losing everything the way most people would. He did not file for bankruptcy quietly. He did not take a settlement to make himself disappear. He did not let the weight of a collapsed business and a ruined reputation push him into silence. He enrolled in law school, from scratch, while broke, while fighting a $20 million civil lawsuit against one of the most well-resourced legal teams in the entertainment industry. And sources say he has not just been attending classes and taking notes, he has been getting good. Good enough that Judge Arun Subramanian, the same federal judge who sentenced Diddy to 50 months at Fort Dix, actually granted Howard special permission to file extended legal briefs in his case. Think about what that means. A sitting federal judge looked at a self-represented man with no law degree, reviewed the quality of his legal arguments, and decided they were sophisticated enough to warrant more space than a standard filing allows. That is not a courtesy. That is a judge signaling that the arguments being made deserve serious consideration. And sources say that development sent a very specific kind of anxiety through Diddy's legal team. Because a self-represented plaintiff with no resources and no formal legal training is one thing. A self-represented plaintiff who a federal judge is publicly recognizing for the quality of his legal work is something else entirely. And the reason Howard's arguments are getting more sophisticated by the day is because what he is building his case around goes far beyond his own personal experience. He is making a claim about Cassie Ventura that nobody in this entire saga has made before. And that claim changes every single thing you thought you knew about her role in this story. Wait, stop. Because everything you just heard about Clayton Howard, the health condition, the pregnancy he never knew about, the collapsed business, the law school, all of it has been framed in the press as the story of a victim of Diddy's world. And that framing is deliberate, because it keeps the focus exactly where Diddy's legal team wants it, on Howard, on his losses, on his journey, and away from the name sitting right next to Diddy's on that lawsuit, Cassie Ventura. Because Clayton Howard is not just suing Diddy, he is suing Cassie. Directly, personally, by name. And what he is alleging about her role in this entire arrangement is the detail that changes everything you thought you understood about this case. Howard's lawsuit does not describe Cassie as someone who was trapped, does not describe her as someone who had no choice, does not describe her as someone operating purely under fear and coercion. Howard alleges that Cassie actively helped manage and run the operation he was brought into, that she was not just present, she was functional, operational, that she was the person who recruited him through the agency in the first place, that she maintained contact with him across nearly a decade, that she was the primary point of communication between Howard and the wider arrangement he was participating in. This is the first civil case in this entire saga to name Cassie Ventura as a defendant, not a witness, not a victim, a defendant. And sources say that filing landed like a bomb inside the legal circles following this case. Because if Howard's allegations carry any weight in that courtroom, the carefully constructed public narrative around Cassie's role in this story does not just get complicated, it gets dismantled completely. And what makes this even more explosive is what Howard is claiming was done to him specifically to make sure this version of events never saw the inside of a courtroom.
Where a key witness just testified in the sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear.
Because Howard is not just alleging that Cassie was involved in the operation. He is alleging that when he tried to tell his story publicly, people with the power to protect him chose instead to protect her. According to Howard's claims, federal prosecutors working on Diddy's criminal case were aware of his account. They knew what he had experienced. They knew what he was alleging about Cassie's role. And sources say, rather than incorporating that account into the criminal proceedings, the decision was made to keep Howard's version of events out of the courtroom entirely, to protect Cassie's credibility as a witness, to preserve the narrative of her as a victim, because a witness who is simultaneously being accused of actively participating in the same operation she is testifying against is a significantly more complicated witness to put in front of a jury. And Howard goes further. He alleges that the government-assigned pro bono lawyer who was supposed to represent his interests was not actually working in his interests at all, that this lawyer was operating in a way that served the prosecution's need to keep Howard quiet, rather than Howard's need to tell his story and seek accountability. Now, those are serious allegations. Allegations that have not been proven in any court. Allegations that Cassie's legal team and federal prosecutors would almost certainly dispute forcefully. But here is why they matter regardless of how they ultimately resolve. Because if even a portion of what Howard is alleging is accurate, it means the most watched and most discussed victim narrative in this entire saga was constructed at least in part by deciding whose story the public would hear and whose story would be kept out of that courtroom. And that question, about who controls the narrative in cases like this, is sitting right at the center of everything Fame Insight covers. But the final detail in this story is the one that brings it all the way back to where we started. And this is where the irony of this entire situation lands hardest. Because step back for a second and look at the full picture of where Sean Combs stands right now. He is serving a 50-month sentence at Fort Dix federal prison. His appeal is sitting in front of 3 Second Circuit judges who called it an exceptionally difficult case and have not ruled yet. He has 25+ civil lawsuits moving through the court system simultaneously. His $100 million defamation case against NBC was thrown out using his own words against him. His presidential pardon attempt was publicly rejected on the front page of the New York Times. His sons launched a docu-series and a cryptocurrency to rehabilitate his image, and 50 Cent responded with 7 words of amusement. And now, from inside that federal prison, he has looked at Clayton Howard's $20 million lawsuit and demanded a jury trial. Not a quiet settlement, not a motion to dismiss, a jury trial. 12 regular people sitting in a box listening to Clayton Howard, who taught himself law from scratch, tell them everything he experienced inside that world for nearly 10 years. Everything about Frank Black. Everything about the $47,000 in hotel damage confirmed by FBI testimony. Everything about the health condition, the pregnancy, the collapsed business, and everything about what he is alleging Cassie's role actually was. That is the trial Diddy is demanding. That is the courtroom he wants. 3 legal battles running simultaneously, an appeal that could go either way. A jury trial being demanded against a man the judge is already recognizing for the quality of his legal arguments. And sitting here watching all of this unfold from Oslo, what strikes me most is not the legal strategy, it is the psychology. Because this is a man who has never once in his entire adult life accepted that something was over, who has always believed that one more move, one more fight, one more demand could change the outcome. And that belief, that absolute refusal to accept reality, is what got him into that prison cell in the first place. The question this community needs to sit with now is simple. Is fighting on 3 fronts simultaneously the move of a man who still has options, or the move of a man who has run out of them and just does not know it yet? And that is where we land today. And if you have been with this community long enough, you already knew this moment was coming. Because we have been watching every single move Diddy has made since that sentencing. The NBC lawsuit that collapsed using his own words. The appeal the judges called exceptionally difficult. The pardon letter Mike Tyson hand-delivered to the White House. The Suns launching a cryptocurrency from inside Fort Dix. And now this? A jury trial demand, filed from a prison cell, against a broke man teaching himself law from scratch, who a federal judge is already publicly recognizing for the quality of his arguments. The pattern is always the same. The bigger the move, the harder the fall. And this community has been here for every single one of them. But here is what this story is really about underneath all the legal maneuvering. Clayton Howard lost his health, lost a child he never knew about, lost his business, lost everything, and nobody offered him a platform. Nobody gave him a Zeus Network docu-series. Nobody launched a cryptocurrency in his name. He just enrolled in law school and got to work. And that contrast between the resources being deployed to protect the powerful and the silence around the people who actually lost something is exactly why Fame Insight exists. Now I want to hear from this community. Do you think Diddy demanding a jury trial is a genuine legal strategy? Or is this a man who simply cannot accept that it is over? Drop your answer in the comments right now. And if you want to understand every legal move leading up to this moment, the appeal, the NBC lawsuit, the pardon letter, we have broken all of it down right here on Fame Insight. If you have been with us, you already know how deep it goes. I will see you there.